Imagine a world untouched by sorrow, a perfect beginning. This was the Garden of Eden. Picture lush trees, their branches heavy with ripe, juicy fruit, lining paths that wound beside streams, so clear you could count every stone on the bottom. Animals of every kind lived together in perfect harmony. And right in the very heart of this paradise stood two remarkable trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In this idyllic world lived Adam and Eve, the first humans created by God. They walked with him, their relationship pure and unbroken. God gave them a world of absolute freedom with just one single boundary. He said, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." One rule. It was a test of trust, a symbol of their relationship with their Creator. But there was another presence in the garden, a shadow lurking in the light. This was the serpent, described as the most cunning of all the wild animals. This creature was filled with malice toward God and was determined to shatter his perfect creation. One day, the serpent slithered its way to Eve, its voice a smooth, silken whisper of doubt. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? A subtle twist of God's words, designed to plant a seed of confusion. Eve corrected the serpent, but she added her own detail. "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden." God did say, "You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." Seeing his opening, the serpent's eyes gleamed. He went for the direct contradiction, the outright lie. "You will not certainly die," he hissed, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The poison of the lie had been administered. It whispered, "God is holding something back from you. He's afraid of you becoming his equal. You're missing out on true wisdom and power." Eve stood before the forbidden tree. She looked at the fruit. It was beautiful, a feast for the eyes. The serpent's words echoed in her mind. The fruit looked good, and the promise it held, the promise of wisdom, of being like God, it was intoxicating. The temptation was too strong to resist. She reached out her hand, plucked the fruit from the branch, and took a bite. The deed was done. But it didn't end there. She then turned to Adam, and she gave him the fruit. And he ate it too. In that instant, everything changed forever. Their eyes were indeed opened, but not to the divine wisdom they had been promised. Instead, they were open to their own vulnerability, their own shame. They saw their nakedness for the first time, and a wave of fear and self-consciousness washed over them. Frantically, they began sewing fig leaves together, creating crude coverings to hide their bodies. Then they heard a familiar sound, the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. But the sound that once brought them comfort and joy now filled them with a chilling dread. They couldn't face him. They ran and hid themselves among the trees, hoping to disappear from the sight of their Creator. God's voice echoed through the now tainted paradise. "Where are you?" It wasn't a question of location. God knew where they were. It was a question of relationship, an invitation to come out of hiding. Adam's voice, trembling and small, answered from behind the trees. I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid. God's response was filled with a deep parental sorrow. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? The moment of truth had arrived. Would they confess? Would they take responsibility? Adam pointed a finger at Eve. The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it. He not only blamed Eve, but subtly implicated God himself. The woman you gave me. God then turned to Eve, his question simple and direct. What is this you have done? Eve, following Adam's lead, shifted the blame. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. No one owned their choice. Sin had entered the world, and with it came separation, fear, and blame. The consequences were swift and severe. God pronounced judgment, starting with the serpent. It was cursed above all other creatures, condemned to crawl on its belly and eat dust for all its days. Then God addressed Eve. He told her she would experience great pain in childbirth, and that there would be conflict and struggle within her relationship with her husband. Turning to Adam, God declared that the very ground he worked would now be cursed. Instead of yielding its fruit easily, it would produce thorns and thistles. From that day on, humanity would have to toil and sweat for its food, working the resistant earth until returning to it in death. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. But even in this moment of judgment and heartbreak, a glimmer of hope, a profound act of mercy, shone through. God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve, covering their shame. This act required the first sacrifice, the shedding of innocent blood, foreshadowing a much greater sacrifice to come. And in the curse on the serpent, God made a promise. He promised that a descendant of Eve, a future offspring, would one day come and crush the serpent's head, delivering a final fatal blow to the enemy. With that, Adam and Eve were sent out of the Garden of Eden. Paradise was lost. To prevent them from eating from the tree of life and living forever in their fallen, sinful state, God placed mighty angelic beings, cherubim, and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way. They stepped out into a new reality, a world that was no longer perfect. It was a world of struggle, pain, and eventually death. They had chosen their own path over God's path, their own wisdom over his command. And now everything was harder. The harmony was broken. But God's story wasn't over. In fact, his grand, sweeping plan for redemption had only just begun. The promise of a rescuer had been spoken, and all of history would now point toward its fulfillment. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. See you next time.